Hi, my name is J.R. Tallman. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create saved searches within NetSuite. Now, if you're new to NetSuite, the first thing you're going to want to do is to hover underneath the Reports section at the top of the screen and go down to Save Searches. From here, you can click on All Saved Searches. Now, once taken on this page, this will show you all saved searches that you have access to, and you could use the Filters option in the top left-hand corner here to filter additional criteria to ensure that you have all saved searches showing. In addition, I'm sorted by this internal ID here, and this will show me the last saved search that was created and available and shown to me within the system. If you don't have this option shown by default with my default view, as you can see here, you can simply go to Home and Set Preferences underneath here. So if I click on Home, Set Preferences, there is an option to show internal IDs. Simply check this box off, click on Save, and when you refresh this particular page underneath Reports, Save Searches, All Save Searches, you can simply click on the header here, which will show you the latest one, assuming that you're showing the latest internal ID, as you can see on the screen. This will show you, again, all saved searches that you have in NetSuite that are available to you, but the purpose of this tutorial is to go through on how to create saved searches. So to create a new saved search, you can simply click on this New Saved Search button. Alternatively, you can go to Reports, Saved Searches, All Saved Searches, and New. So either way will take you to the next screen they're about to go to. Now, once we're on the screen for the new saved search, what will show on this page will be the search type. Now, there's a bunch of different search types that you can select from between this list. So if you want to do a saved search on customers, you would select the search type that says customer here. If you want to do it on contacts, you would do contacts, and so forth. However, I would say 90% plus saved searches that individuals are doing for companies are going to be transaction-based saved searches for their analysis based on their transactions. So what we're going to do in this particular exercise, we're going to select the transaction search type, and we're going to use this as our exercise criteria. And we're going to use this as our saved search type. Okay, so I'm going to click on transaction here as the saved search type, and then we're going to be taken to our first saved search transaction criteria. Now, the first thing we're going to want to do, and it is required, you can see this little asterisk here, it says the search title. So this is our saved search name that we can give it and we can use, and it will be available within our list once we save this in the system. In addition, this will be available to search. So any saved searches that you have outstanding, you can simply search in the global search box and get to it right away, which I'll show you once we name this. So I'm going to go ahead and name this Invoice Tutorial. The next field is going to be an ID. Now, you don't need to give this an ID if you don't want. Most of the time, most individuals do not give this an ID, and it will be auto-generated by NetSuite. So I'm going to keep that blank here, and it will be auto-generated. This can be used within scripts and other automations down the road. Some of these options may not be available to you depending on if you are an administrator or a different role. But for right now, I am an administrator role, so I can make this public to additional users to actually run. Now, if they don't have the underlying permissions to view transactions, they're not going to see any search results, but they can actually run the saved search if this is public. So go ahead and mark this as public for a majority of your saved searches that you want to go ahead and give them the same URL once we save and run this. Available as list view. If this is checked, what will happen is you can make this as a list view option when you're running. In this case, it's going to be a list of invoices. So if I go to our transactions, sales, create invoices, and list, this is going to be a list view. And once I open up the page for our list of invoices, you can see my view here is default. This will allow me to select that name that I'm about to create as this view, and it will show me my results within this particular view. So that's what that option does. But for now, I'm going to go and uncheck this and keep it as default. Available as dashboard view, what this will allow you to do is it will let you put this saved search on your dashboard as part of a search portlet. So again, if you check this off, and you can add this particular search as a search portlet. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and keep this unchecked. All right, the next field here is available as sublist view. What this will do is if you go to a customer, so we went on to our list view for our invoices. Remember, that is the list view. But let's say I go into one of these customers, and on the customer record, there is a subtab called sales. This is by default. You will see this transaction sublist. Now, this is a sublist view where I can select this view, which is default, but I could change this to be the new one that I'm going to be setting up in the system. So this is a sublist view versus the standard list view that we just saw as a preference. Again, I'm going to keep this box unchecked. The next one is available for reminders. So if you check this off, you can make this particular Save Search available as a reminder portlet on your home dashboard. So for instance, if you are building a Save Search for approval notifications and you want to see how many pending approval transactions that you have, you can create that Save Search and then make that available as a portlet. Again, I'm going to keep this unchecked. This is a little bit more advanced for our particular tutorial here. And then show in menu. What this will do is the show in menu will simply make this available to show underneath reports, save searches, and all save searches. It will show within the menu option. I'm going to go ahead and check this off and we'll make sure that we see that once we save and run this. All right, so those are the options that I have, at least within this development environment in the header. And you're going to see those across all the different types, whether you do transaction, customers, vendors, etc., etc. Now, moving down to the criteria, this is the key backing criteria that we're going to want to use when creating a Save Search within NetSuite. So typically when we're creating a transaction Save Search, the first thing you're going to want to notice is to add a type criteria. And the type criteria will define what type of transactions that you want to see when we actually run this. So I always recommend to use a type criteria as our first filter down below here. So I'm going to simply add in type as the filter, and that is going to be the name from this drop-down list. And you're going to see I can select any of the different types of transactions that I want to use. And in this particular example, I'm going to go ahead and use invoices. I can simply set this. So right now, as part of my Save Search, I'm just going to run a Save Search, and it's going to just show me invoices, all invoices within the system. So if I go ahead and save and run this, just to show you how this looks, right now, this particular Save Search will show me all invoices. You can see I have a total of 14. However, that is not the number of invoices that is showing on the screen. You can see here is there is this little asterisk icon. I have not customized what we show as the results. But you can see this little asterisk icon shows up twice. And what this is doing is it's showing the main line, so the header section that is hitting our balance sheet number, and then it's showing our line level information that is hitting our income statement for our individual line items. All right, so I actually have only 2 invoices here. You can see with the document number, I have 2 invoices showing here. So if I don't want this to be basically duplicated for our amount here, because you can see our header section and then our individual lines show basically twice. So I have the option to either show my header, so just one line for each transaction, or potentially I'm running the Save Search and I want to show detailed line level information for my actual invoices. So I have 2 options here. So if I go and edit this search, and go back to the Save Search, the next filter that you're going to want to use as a standard criteria filter is going to be called mainline, right? So you can see this is called strictly mainline. We have 2 options here, yes or no. We can simply click on either if we want to show all that level of detail. However, you're going to get duplicated results if you keep this as either. So in my example, I'm going to start off with yes here. And what you're going to see when I save and run this again are 2 lines, right? So I have 2 invoices in this particular development instance, and I see the amount that is total for those invoices. Perfect. Now, if I change that to mainline as no or false, it would remove these 2 lines, and it would just show me the individual line items that make up that invoice. All right, so if I go back to edit the search, I will do that. And I can simply click on that expand or open button and change this to no. And set. And I'm going to go ahead and simply click on Save and Run. Now, once this is run, you can see I have a total of 12 here instead of 14, and I see the line level information. Now, in addition to the line level information that I'm seeing here, I'm also seeing lines that include taxes. So you can see here, this says memo GST, PST. If I scroll down below here, I have GST, PST. So I have tax lines that also make up this, in addition to my line level items on the actual invoice. So if I want to get rid of my tax lines, I'm going to go ahead and edit this search and simply click on the drop down here and use tax line is either yes or no. So I want to remove tax lines from showing. You would simply click on tax line is no and save and run this, and this would show me just my line items that make up each of these invoices. Now, one thing that I have not got to just quite yet is my item itself. I don't have that shown here, but if I include an item in my results, you would see the actual items here. If I go back to edit this search, the last one that I would recommend adding as part of the criteria that is very similar to mainline and tax line is going to be shipping line. Right? So if you do use shipping within your environment, you're going to want to go ahead and use shipping line is either yes or no if you want to include or exclude certain lines. I can go ahead and click on that as no. However, I did not see any shipping lines when I ran this save search. All right, so type, mainline are going to be the two most important here when you're creating transaction save searches, I would say. And then before I get into the additional subtabs here, one other one I would recommend adding as part of a criteria filter from this dropdown is posting. So if you only want to see posted transactions, you can go ahead and use a posting reference here. So posting is true or yes, and this will just show you entries that hit the GL if you are reconciling to any of your financial reports. Now, in addition, from this drop-down list, you're going to see all different fields. I'm not going to go through, obviously, all these fields, but some other common ones that you might want to run in the back end when you're creating these save searches is going to be date or posting period. Now, you can also add that as an available filter, which we'll get to in just a moment, and you can run that on demand, basically in real time, and it will refresh when you're actually running the save search rather than being in the back end. However, if you do want it to be run based on the back end criteria, you can simply add in date, posting period, and set that as your criteria. Feel free to add additional fields as necessary here. I'm going to show you how to add additional fields underneath the results, and you may use the same fields in the criteria as the results. So I'm going to move on to the results here. And this results is going to have some additional options at the top here. We have some sorting if you want to sort specific fields, ascending or descending. So feel free to select the fields here. Same thing with the output type if you want to have normal, report, grid, graph. However, I would say in the majority of cases, customers want just normal as the output type. That is the standard format within NetSuite. The consolidated exchange rate type is going to be per account. So that's how it works natively within NetSuite based on if it is a current, average, or historical rate per account. I do recommend showing totals. This is important as it will show any totals for any amounts fields that you have listed down below here. This is helpful for reconciliation purposes. Run unrestricted. This will only show if you are an administrator. So this will show individual users if you give them access to this particular save search. It will run unrestricted for them regardless of their permissions that they have set on their account. So be mindful of this. If you do want to kind of override their permissions, you can run unrestricted and give it a max result if necessary, but be careful with this one if you are playing around with it and giving access to the underlying transactions to your users. And then my preferred search results, this will make this particular search your preferred results when you're viewing the global search results in NetSuite. So I would keep this box unchecked. The only thing I recommend checking off here is going to be the show totals and then adjusting the sort by options as necessary depending on your results. Now moving down here to the columns, this is very important within NetSuite when you're creating save searches, as this is going to be your fields that show as columns on your output. So as you saw when I clicked save and run, it was showing me order type, that little asterisk to represent the main line or the line level of the transactions, date, and so forth. If you don't want these default ones, or if you're seeing more fields, a lot of times you'll see more fields here if you are customizing or have customized fields. I recommend just clicking this remove all button to start off with. It's a lot easier than just going into each one of these and clicking the remove button. So I click on remove all, and then you can start from scratch here. So in my example, I'm going to simply click on the drop down after I click the remove all and add in document number. I can click on add here. I can add in name. I can add in the type of the transaction, which I added in with the criteria, which should all be invoices. And then I'm also going to add in the amount. This will shorten it when I view the list, and I can click on save and run. It is good practice, when you add these things, just click on save and run from there and make sure that this looks good so it doesn't time out as you're running. So as you can see, my options to show totals now shows the totals, and it looks a little bit more condensed on my view. I didn't add that internal ID, right, as a column. However, that preference that I changed at the beginning of this video, it will always show me the internal ID within here. This is useful if you want to do any uploads to update transactions, so it is good to have. Now, if a user does not have that preference enabled and they run this particular save search that you can see on the screen, they will not see this column. They're only going to see the columns that they see within the report or whether they have this preference turned on. So I can edit this search and go back to this results. Now, one thing to note on the results themselves, maybe you're trying to pull in something from another table. In this case, let's say there is a field on the customer record that's not directly on that invoice record. Let's say we want to pull in the terms that are set on the customer record, not on the invoice. I want to pull in the terms that are set on the customer record. What we're going to do is on this dropdown, you're going to see all fields that you can add, but at the way bottom here, you're going to see fields that say vertical fields, ... vendor fields, ... those are going to be linked tables. So on an invoice, we have a customer, obviously, on our invoice. And we can basically say we want to go to our customer fields that are on that invoice. So if I find customer fields ... so this customer mainline fields ... I can go ahead and click on this. And this will show me additional fields that make up that particular customer. So you can see I can basically pull in any of the fields that make up that customer. So if I go ahead and add in terms, this will pull in the terms from the customer, not the invoice, and it will show me that as part of my results. So I go ahead and save and run this. We can see if there's any terms on that customer. And in this case, there is no terms on that customer record, so it's simply blank, as you can see. Okay, but that will help you at least add additional columns as necessary when you are going through creating saved searches. So I'm going to click on Edit This Search to go back to edit this saved search. One thing else to note is there's some additional advanced functionality here, both on the criteria and the results. There's this use expression. So if you do want to get sophisticated based on parentheses and or operations, you can click on use expression, which we're not going to get into here. You can do formulas in addition to the fields. There are formula fields that you can use from the drop down here. But again, when you're starting off with saved searches, I don't recommend starting with those. And then on the results, you're going to see additional options here with summary type, function, formulas, and some additional options if you want to change the label name or the summary label. So you can go ahead and change the label. That's pretty straightforward. But some of these advanced options with summary type, the function, and the formula, I would say for more of an advanced functionality. Once you're done adding your results, the next sub-tab here is going to be highlighting. This is pretty straightforward within NetSuite, and what this will allow us to do is basically put highlighting on individual rows within the saved search to highlight a specific instance or criteria that's met. So in this example, what I can do is I can highlight any potential rows that are above of a certain amount. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go to this condition and click on this little expand or set filters. And within here, I'm going to add a filter that says amount is greater than, let's say, 30. Click OK and set this. And then I have some options for image, text color, background color, making it bold, etc. So let's go ahead and make a text color here that's red, and I can make it bold. And I can simply click add here and save and run. And what this should do, it should make any amounts on that row that are greater than $30, bold and red text, as you can see. So this might be useful if you're using project statuses, if you want to make sure they're on track, or if you're doing anything that might be past days due, etc., to make sure that they stand out. And remember, you can put these saved searches on your dashboard. I didn't show you that option, but it is available. If we go back to edit this search, that is the highlighting options. The next sub-tab here is going to be the available filters. Now, as I mentioned, the backend criteria filters are going to be underneath criteria, and then the on-demand filters are going to be underneath this available filters option. One of the more common available filters down below here when you're running on-demand is going to be the date. So what I can do here is I'm going to add in a date as my filter, and then you're going to want to make sure that you show in the filter region. Otherwise, it's not going to actually show when you're running the particular saved search. So make sure that this is showing in filter region. And if it is a multi-select value, let's say it's one of your subsidiaries, maybe it's one of your classifications with departments, classes, or locations, you can go ahead and check this off. But because it is a date, there is no multi-select option. And then you can click on add here. I'm going to go to results, make sure my date is added here. So if I want to add another field, I can go ahead and click on here. I can click on insert if I want to and simply add in date. So I can see the date and I can actually filter based off of that. Now this isn't necessary to actually have the field within the results. This is just for my purpose when I actually save and run this. So I'm going to go ahead and save and run. And what you'll see in the top left-hand corner of the screen is filters. And my preference here, I can see my date. My one invoice here is from 2/5 with just one line. And then I have additional dates down below. So what I can do here is if I just want to see, let's say 2/5 invoices, I know I'm showing just the line level information. I can go ahead and change this date to just be 2/5. And this is going to update in real time. There's no refresh option here. And then I would need to put the 2, and it will refresh in real time once I select the 2, and it should get rid of the additional options down below here. So that is the date option, adding as an available filter, and you can add as many available filter options as you would like, but one of the most common is going to be your subsidiary or date. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on Edit This Search and go to Audience. Now remember, I am in an administrator role, so depending on your particular permissions, you might not see Audience here. But I do have the options to allow audience to edit this particular saved search. So I can go ahead and check this off and they're able to edit and make changes themselves. Otherwise, most of the times the user would have to do a save as rather than edit this directly because I am the owner of this saved search. You can see you can change the owner after I've saved this up in the top left-hand corner. However, this typically is not checked depending on who you're working with. But since I did make it public, it does have available to all roles down below here. If you make it public, no need to actually change this setting. And if the particular user has the ability to edit, they're able to do so. The roles subtab here, what this will allow you to do, and I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but this will allow you to make this particular saved search a default list, form, result, dashboard, sublist, as you can see. So if there is a particular saved search that you want to create for a user and make it default for them, you can actually come in here and check it off and say, hey, I want to make this particular saved search as the default list view within NetSuite. You can actually even make it the preferred search form, search result form, dashboard view, or the sublist view. Keep that in mind if you want to do a little bit more advanced options. You can also do this on the actual role themselves when you're creating the roles. The next option here is going to be our email subtab, and this is very powerful within NetSuite. So there's a couple different ways to email searches out of NetSuite. The first one is going to be when records are created or updated within the particular application. So in this particular saved search, it's just basically showing me all invoices that have been created. It will show me within my results. So if I check this off, what this will do is it will, anytime a new invoice gets generated, it will email the results to my recipient down below here. And this recipient can be a contact, an employee, a customer, basically any type of record that we have set up inside of NetSuite. We just need to select it from this dropdown as a recipient. But this will actually send out when a new record is created, assuming that we have this box checked. If we want to actually send when a record has been updated, you're going to want to check this off and then click on the send on update. I'm going to go ahead and select myself as a recipient down below here. And then what you're going to see is this send on update. So if I go and check this box off, send on update, it will also send on update. If I want to show any recent changes, you can check that off as well. But if you just simply want to show when a invoice has been created in this particular use case, I would uncheck the send on update. All right, once that's added, you can click on add and then add additional recipients as necessary down below here. Now, the second option when it comes to emailing, and we're going to get to the additional sublist fields in just a second, is going to be according to a schedule. So if you want a saved search, let's say to send out at the first of the month or the last day of the month, according to the search results, let's say all invoices or vendor bills that make up a certain criteria, you can go ahead and click off the send emails according to schedule, whether you want to summarize the scheduled emails and send if there is no results at your particular interval time that we're about to set up. So I'm going to uncheck both of these options and basically just send the email according to the schedule, which you'll see in just a moment. Moving on to the recipient from results sublist here. What this will allow us to do is it will actually allow us to send the email to a recipient from our results that are showing within the saved search. In this particular instance, I'm running a saved search off of invoices. And let's say as part of that invoice, we have someone that was creating that invoice. And we want to send this saved search alert to whenever somebody creates it, we want to alert them that it has been created. So our recipient field could be the created by user. So on this dropdown, you can see the created by user. You could also send it to the name, which would be the customer name. Depends on what the type of transaction you're working with. This is less common, but it does allow you to actually define the recipient from the actual transaction that you're working with. Most commonly is going to be identifying specific recipients based on whether it be an employee, customer, contact, whomever it is. This is a static field, and the email that comes from this is going to be on their actual record within NetSuite. Moving on to the updated fields sublist here, what this will allow you to do is it will allow you to send updates when a field value changes. This is, again, very less common, very similar to the recipients from results, but if a specific field that you identify when the old value and the new value changes, it can automatically alert someone. However, from what I see, in most cases, you can just define that within the criteria and then have this automatically send when there is a new result as part of that criteria. The next sublist here is going to be the customized message. This customized message is very important as we want to make sure that this is populated so that we can actually email the message out when records are created or according to the schedule. If I scroll down here, the first thing I'm going to go ahead and do is put a from. Now this from can be any email address that you want to use within your preference. Most commonly, what I typically do is use NetSuite alerts at netsuite.com, oracle.com, your particular company's email domain.com. You can use whatever you would like as the from, and you would also need to put the actual sender within the actual from here. So what you're going to see is when I populate this from, I'm going to first need to make sure that these have double quotes for the sender, and then I'm going to have to use angle brackets for my actual email address that I want the from. So I'm going to set this up to be NetSuite alerts. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use double quotes and then put NetSuite alerts. And this can be the sender name. It can be anything that you would like to populate it here. A space, and then I'm going to use my angle brackets. And I'm going to put NetSuite alerts at netsuite.com. And then I'm going to put another angle bracket and just tab out of there. Now, if you don't have that set up based on this particular criteria, let's say you don't forget one of these angle brackets and I tab out of here, NetSuite's going to give me a pop-up message that basically says the from address must be in the form of that double quotes and the angle brackets with the name and the email address. So I'm going to simply go back here and put that angle bracket and we should be good to go. The subject can be anything you want. I'm going to call this brand new invoice. And then what you can do is two options here. We can have an introduction or a single record results where we can customize the message a little bit more. However, what I recommend here is not to use this particular area with the actual HTML code. Instead, just put an introduction that says, please see a new invoice record created below. Don't put anything in this particular area. And then down below here, we can have summarize results, send within message. And what that's going to do is it's going to put the results that I have within my message underneath this introduction. And I'll show you that in just a moment. We also have some additional options if you don't want to send it within the message. You can send as a CSV, Excel, or PDF to your options. And then whether you want to include a view record link directly back to NetSuite. This is very common from what you're seeing on the screen here. Before I show you how that looks when I actually save this and create a brand new invoice, the next sublist I'm going to go to is the schedule. And this is pretty straightforward. And you can schedule this on your frequency that you would like, whether it be a single event, a daily event, a weekly event, etc. And you can change your options here as far as the start time, when you want this to end, etc. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and save and run this. Now, then nothing's going to get emailed because nothing's been created or the schedule itself. However, I'm going to create a brand new invoice, and then I'm going to show you that email that will go out. All right, I just created a brand new invoice, and I got an email message that you can see on my screen here. It came from NetSuite alerts at netsuite.com, and it came to myself because I was working with this. And then you can also see it says, please see a new invoice record created below. You can see that based off of that criteria that I added within the email message. And then it's showing me my results that I had. So I am showing the document number, date, etc. And then I have a view record link directly back to NetSuite. So this is very helpful. If we go back into NetSuite here and go back to the Save Search and edit the Save Search, the next sublist is going to be our Audit Trail, which NetSuite has recently introduced in the last couple years that will show us basically all the audit trail of when individuals change this particular transaction Save Search. So you can see this here underneath the Audit Trail if you do want to see any changes. And then lastly, you can actually see the execution log of who executed this particular Save Search. So if there is users that are running this and you want to see who executed this, you can see this from this execution log and whether it was exported out to a CSV or whatever it may be. And you can simply save and run this and export that out with our available options here. So you do have the ability to export this out in the header as well as print or email. You have the email option up here when you're running a Save Search. Now, lastly, when you are creating a Save Search, like I mentioned at the beginning, this is called Invoice Tutorial. You can simply use this global search and search for that name, and it should come up here as the title. So it says search invoice tutorial and simply navigate to this. Also, since I did include this within the search menu, I can go ahead and go to reports, save searches, and I see this as an available option for my invoice tutorial. Lastly, if I go to all save searches here, because this is the last one I ran and I am sorting by my internal ID, there it is. There's my particular save search showing it's the last one called invoice tutorial. NetSuite gave this an ID that was auto-generated. As you can see, that's okay. And then if I simply need to edit this or if I want to view this, you can simply click on the view. This concludes how to create a Save Search within NetSuite. If you do have any comments, put it directly below within this video and I'll get back to you. Please like and subscribe, and hopefully you can watch my additional videos. Thank you.